And here we go. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Ithaca podcast, your local podcast for entertainment in the greater Ithaca, New York area. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sean, your host, and joining me is my ever-knowledgeable co-host, Pete. This week we'll be discussing some upcoming concerts in Ithaca, and we'll be exploring my recent visit to the Faro Lake in the Adirondacks. Also, in 10 minutes from now, we're going to be interviewing Steve and Chris from the Bike Bar. Let's get started.
Yeah, Sean. Super excited to be here with you guys today.
Yes, it's a big episode today.
It is. We have some in-house guests. This is our first time doing a actual interview in person. The past couple ones that we've done have been over the phone. So Steve and Chris, welcome. Great to have you guys with us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We're going to go ahead and cruise through the events that we have lined up here, and then our second segment is going to be interviewing these fine two gentlemen who've joined us today. So I guess at this point, we'll go ahead and get right into what's going on in Ithaca over the next couple of weeks. First off, the Chili Cook-Off is coming up this weekend.
It is.
In Downtown Ithaca. It's the 26th annual Chili Cook-Off, and it's an opportunity for everyone to indulge in a mouth-watering chili offerings from over 40 restaurants, complemented by an array of delightful drinks and chili-inspired snacks from regional craft breweries, local cideries, wineries, and beloved local establishments. Ticket details are available at downtownithaca.com. And one of the things I really like about this is it's actually a competition. And the title is Best Meat Chili, Best Vegetarian Chili, or Vegan Chili. And the coveted People's Choice for the best chili in all of Ithaca, New York. So definitely come on down, embrace the winter chill, although there might not be much of a chill. The weather's been pretty mild here recently. So yeah, if you want to check out the list of participating restaurants, head out to downtownithaca.com. The couple other events coming up, Deep Dive, as always, has some good stuff going on.
Yep.
On Sunday, March 3rd, Circles Around the Sun and Mikaela Davis are playing. Tickets are $32 in advance, $40 at the door. It's 18 plus. Showtime is 9 p.m. For those of you not familiar, you can join us for a night with Los Angeles-based Circles Around the Sun and Hudson Valley's own Mikaela Davis. Circles Around the Sun is known for their contemporary instrumental rock, originated to create music for the Grateful Dead's 50th anniversary post-tour. And they've released albums reflecting their unique blend of jazz, funk, soul, and fusion, continuing even after the tragic loss of guitarist Neil Cassell in 2019. So with John Lee Shannon stepping in as the new guitarist. And Mikaela Davis shines as a songwriter and harpist, merging classical training with 60s pop, psychedelia, and bluegrass rock. Come experience the magic of this music live. Tickets are available at www.deepdiveithaca.com. I think I'll be going to that show.
All right.
Yeah, so
Nice.
It's been highly recommended. A couple other show announcements. We have the State Theater. They have Ex-Ambassadors on June 1st, 2024. And they have Trombone Shorty and New Orleans Avenue. That's February 28th, 2024. Other shows that are coming up, Live, Unplugged on March 1st. For those of you not familiar with Live, they've sold over 22 million albums worldwide, earned 2 number 1 albums. Their catalog is filled with such gems as Lighting Crashes, I Alone, All Over You, and Lanica's Juice, which live on today as classics on rock radio. For anyone who's looking to relive some of these years, definitely come out and check out Live Unplugged March 1st, 2024, and that's at statetheaterofithaca.com. I think we have one other under radar event actually coming up at Bike Bar.
Yes.
It's a Zydeco dance party featuring a newly formed band, and their name is Heavy Bone and the Good Time Zydeco Band. And that's happening Tuesday, March 5th at Bike Bar. And they bring energy with their foot-stomping grooves and heart-thumping melodies.
Yes.
The band includes our friend Joe Hayward, Jonas Pure, Sam Schmidge, and Zebulon Whitford.
Nice job with all the names.
Thank you. I did practice. So, yeah, super excited for that. Don't normally get out on Tuesday nights, but you guys have great music going on there on Tuesdays. So that pretty much does it for events. This week, we're very excited to welcome to the Pulse of Ithaca podcast.
Yes.
Each week, we spotlight stories and people that make our town uniquely vibrant. And today, we're especially excited to welcome two guests whose creativity and entrepreneur spirit have enriched our community in more ways than one. Meet Steve and Chris, the driving force behind Bike Bar and its companion bike shop, two places that have quickly become landmarks in Ithaca for locals and visitors alike. Steve and Chris have masterfully combined their love for the great outdoors, mountain biking, and to a welcoming space where everyone can gather over finely crafted beer and cocktails. So what draws us back each time and time again isn't just the exceptional service or the quality selection, but the sense of community that Steve and Chris and his staff have fostered at both ventures. So his establishments reflect a deep love for Ithaca and a dedication to contributing positively to the fabric of our town. So let's welcome two men who've made significant impact on how we come together, sharing joy and camaraderie. Steve and Chris, it's a pleasure to be with you today on the Pulse of Ithaca. So good to have you with us today. How are you guys?
Thank you, guys.
Doing
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks
for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we were going through lists of people to interview when we first came up with the idea for the podcast, and we were sitting at Bike Bar.
Yep. Our first podcast was at the Bike Bar.
That's right. It was.
We weren't on the list, right?
Oh, you guys were at the top of our list. We were looking around the room.
Yeah. The whole genesis of this idea was the Bike Bar. The environment you guys have created there was like,
Cool.
You know, Pete was just the guy. I couldn't remember his name, but he had his very easy name. I couldn't remember it. But I was like, I like what we're talking about. We should probably just bottle this up and call it a podcast.
That's right. I would come in each week and tell you about all these shows coming up on Wednesday. You'd tell me about hiking and whatnot that you've been doing.
Right.
So you're like, we should hit the record button. So thank you guys again for joining us. And we've got a handful of questions, and we'll just put these out there, and you guys can just reply for whoever you think is. You guys can both reply if you want to. Awesome. So can you share with us, and Steve, this might start with you, and but Chris, it's also relevant to you because you're not from the area, but how can you share with us your journey that led you to Ithaca and eventually to opening up the bike shop and Bike Bar and then bringing on Chris as well?
Sure. I mean, I sort of landed in short in Ithaca because of school. I transferred to this area to Ithaca College from Penn State in the early 90s, and kind of was back and forth between here and Vermont, and eventually just landed here to stay a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what year did you actually move here permanently?
I mean, twice.
Yeah, there were a couple big breaks in there, but I think I moved. I came here in 1993 originally, and then stayed until 90s. I'm trying to remember. I left again in 2006. I left a couple big breaks, but I just kept coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And now, from conversations I've had with you before, this is not your first business here in Ithaca, right? Haven't you also had other businesses here? Or?
Yeah, I had several businesses here. I mean, I worked when I was young in multiple businesses around Ithaca.
Mm-hmm.
I worked, all sorts of small cafe and restaurant jobs, and then eventually was working for myself doing a little bit of glass blowing when I was younger.
Nice.
And had a spot over by Buttermilk called Buttermilk Studios, which was just kind of a collective of people doing art and glass and teaching, and that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And then because I really loved doing things in the outdoors, I started kind of selling things online, and Old Goat was an eBay store originally.
Oh, get out of here. Okay.
Nice.
And that Old Goat is the bike shop that's right next door to the bar there. And was it, what do you mean by an eBay shop? Could people bring in stuff and you would sell it for them on eBay? Or?
No, I was just looking at buying, and I was selling samples of outdoor clothing and gear online on eBay, and just felt like coming from Burlington, they had the outdoor gear exchange there, that we could use a retail space downtown like that.
Yeah, awesome. So it started out as an exchange, basically?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, awesome. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
And then at what point did you decide, like, hey, this space next to me is open up and I should open a bar? Like, how did that how did that happen?
Yeah, to jump to that, so the bike shop started taking a bigger role in the business, and it went from being, at some point the bike shop was really tiny to me giving it more space by demand. And at some point I thought it'd be really cool if we can have a couple of beer taps in the bike shop. Someone comes in, they need like a flat fix, they can have a beer. That's what I would have wanted if I was a customer, like, hey, just stop in and that kind of thing. And at some point I started exploring that idea, maybe talking to the landlord, maybe looking into the idea of getting a liquor license or just a beer and wine license for that space, and having just a small 6-foot space with a couple of seats. And when I looked into like health board regulations and things like that, that seemed like not feasible.
Okay.
To have like, hey, you're working on a bike, greasy hands, you're gonna grab a pint.
Right.
Yeah, people. Yeah. So when I talked to one of the folks at the health department, they said, yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Okay, interesting. And was the shop next door vacant at that point, or the space next door vacant?
No, it was not. It was a little yarn shop that my friend Julie owned, and she was just planning on moving. She was unhappy in downtown Ithaca and moved her shop to Trumansburg, which is still there as far as I know. That's homespun. And
oh, okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I started toying with the idea of like, hey, we've got this big empty room next door, so I talked to my landlord and started looking into that, and really wasn't intending it to be as sort of much as it is, but it grew. The idea kept getting steamrolling.
Right.
Momentum.
Yeah.
Got momentum, yeah.
And then at what point did you bring in Chris? Or Chris, how did you get brought into the fold here?
I'll start from the beginning.
Sure.
Had
Big
a couple
Bang.
friends who lived here. Well, Big Bang, yes. Had a couple friends who lived in Ithaca, visited them a few times, and then found out that Ithaca, whether it's the geography, something about this place has this magnetism that just draws you in and
100%.
holds you, keeps you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I moved here, I worked out at Brookton's Market in Brooktondale for about a year. Steve lives out that way. So we became friends. I quickly learned that he favors the lager side of beer. So we were able to just, build a simple friendship.
Yeah.
Based on beer and just being, we both had seen a lot of early Fish shows around the same era, kind of like early to mid 90s. And, that developed a conversation, which eventually led to, he asking me like, hey, going to open a bar next to the bike shop. Do you want to manage it? And I was like, hell yes.
Yeah.
So serendipitous to a degree, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
And how did the decision come? Because one of the things I like the best about Bike Bar is that you guys make excellent cocktails, right? A lot of places serve beer. There's a lot of tap rooms. There's a lot of craft beer. It's definitely a thing in this town.
It's an either or thing.
Yeah, it's oftentimes either or they'll just make you they'll make you like a well drink or some kind of tonic and soda and tonic and liquor. How did it come about to like make it both a cocktail bar and a beer bar?
So I would say, starting out, I knew nothing about cocktails.
Stop.
I love beer. Mm-hmm. I have a passion for beer. Cocktails, not as much, but the history of the bar has been like a really interesting climb, because we opened up like late October of 2019. Mm-hmm. Friday the 13th, March, was our last day open for like another 4 months.
Right.
COVID happened.
Right. Yeah.
And then, so myself and another bartender worked for like a solid year doing that. And we had limited seating.
Yeah.
And in having limited seating, we knew a local musician who also had a fondness for beer and, all things liquid enjoyment.
Yeah.
And Joe Hayward. So I used to plop him down at the end of the bar on his very own bar stool, away from everyone else, kind of limited seating type of situation.
Right.
And he started watching what we were doing and noticed that myself and the other bartender just got considerably busier and busier as people started to grow accustomed to Bike Bar and like to be there.
Yeah.
And once Joe came on and that other bartender went on to, greater things, Joe kind of inspired me to get my head out of my butt.
Yeah.
And not just, say like we're craft beer and we're just doing these simple cocktails. He kind of showed me like cocktails are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you can.
It's an art. It's a science.
It's all the above.
Yeah.
And once we started that menu, instantly, the response from the clientele was like, yes.
Yeah.
So I always say that, like, people always say, like, oh, we love Bike Bar. And I always say it's symbiotic.
Yeah.
We have great people that come in, and so it makes us want to do better. So between the clientele and Joe, that's how the cocktail thing. And I also thought, like, if we have a great beer menu, then, well, the cocktail menu should be as great.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys do such a great job with that. So how long was that kind of slimmed down? Like, what did that look like with the cocktails when you first started out?
Yeah, well, that was, I think there were like 3 or 4 drinks.
I mean, essentially, we had like
initially,
we had 3 or 4
blood orange,
mixed drinks: blood orange, vodka,
cucumber,
of course the mules, and then beyond that, as far as drinks that we were making, not really professionally at that point, your old-fashioned Manhattan, a Gold Rush. They're like, that was it.
Yeah.
That was really it.
that was the menu.
Yeah, because we had a lot of people come in and go, can I have a Negroni? I was like, no.
Right. Yeah, we have a menu.
Yeah,
All right.
Now I realize, what a simple drink it is, and it's the whole thing's, for me, is just funny.
Yeah.
And that's become, it's like making drinks. At the end of a night, you make like 200 drinks.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as some people get older, I know myself, as I get older, I'm drinking less beer. I think, and there's people out there who are drinking less beer.
Well, that's your problem, not mine.
Right. But it's great that you have an option for people, right? Because sometimes
Sure.
people want me to go somewhere and there's only beer there. So I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's great that you guys do both things so well.
What's really funny is I still have people who come in and go, oh, I think you guys, you're mostly a beer bar, right? And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Someone else mentioned that to me too. And I was like, no.
So I think with COVID and, I think that created a kind of a disconnect with what we are currently doing.
Sure.
With what we were doing at inception.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been really insightful into the startup there.
Yeah, totally.
And,
it's very insightful for me personally. Yeah. You all set?
yeah.
Okay.
You're up.
Cool. All right. As an avid mountain biker and an outdoors person, how do you bring your passion for the outdoors into the day-to-day operations of your business? I mean, walking there, you see the bar itself, you see the gears, you see the bikes, the vintage bikes on the wall, you see the vintage jerseys, like you have like the old farm barnwood on the walls and stuff.
Yeah.
How, like, when you're envisioning the Bike Bar, like, how did that like come about, like merging like your passions into like this business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty natural in the sense that we just all wanted to. There would be a group of us that would, behind closed doors, get some beers, fix our bikes.
Yeah.
So that was the organic start of Bike Bar. Like, hey, let's all take
Sure.
our bikes, tune them up for spring, get a case of beer, and I've got this sort of bike clubhouse we can hang out in.
Yeah.
And then it grew obviously into the bar, and the space grew and kept growing. And I think it was cool. We just had a really great basement full of things to display.
Sure.
That would be a shame not to get on the wall.
So were those your things, like collect over time?
Yeah,
or?
over time. Yeah, they would just,
Okay.
the basement was insane for a long time. It's
Okay.
pretty manageable now. But
Yeah.
for the longest time, it was just like, oh, this is, somebody would want to part with something. Oh, well, I've got this old thing in my garage.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a look at it? And I would take it in and just put it in the basement. It would collect dust, and it did that for years because
Okay.
I had that space for, at that point, whatever, 8 or 9 years before
Right.
the bar opened. So, and then eventually they all came out. And there's still some stuff that's not out, but
Okay.
or people would be like, oh, I have this old jersey. It's some old wool Italian.
Yeah, well, Bianchi.
Yeah, super cool, like, so that has to be seen. So that stuff, that was all part of it. And then
Awesome.
The mechanics that are working during the day, I just always like, hey, save stuff, save gears.
Yeah.
We could just throw them in degreaser, clean them up, get them out, use them for something to contribute to the space.
That's awesome. So like when I go in there, obviously like, I bike too, road bike and mountain bike. So there's
Sure.
stuff that I recognize, but when I bring my friends that don't bike, they'll point it out and like, give you guys props.
Oh,
which is
cool.
like really cool. So it's like, it's such a
Yeah.
cool thing because it's like, I have a personal connection to it. But then when I bring my friends that are that like don't bike, they're just like, oh, this is so cool. Like,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like the gears in the bar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
love that.
underneath the bar there. And
yeah.
the vintage bike stuff that you have in there.
Yeah, so a lot of that was like Anesti Zakos, who was helped me build the space and come up with that vision. Was like I had all these ideas, and having a real builder being able to say like, hey, that's possible, or hey, you're gonna have to axe that idea because that's not gonna work. And that was the person who really helped with that.
Okay.
The initial build out and the expansion, who I worked with.
Yeah.
And I think he's like AZ Designs or something locally.
Okay,
in Ithaca.
cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
and he does, so that was my thing. And he just said, hey, put those gears on the bar where you want them, trace them, and I'll get them in there. And yeah, and then while he was doing that, a lot of the other stuff was me.
Okay.
Like the barnwood on the walls. I would just putting the barnwood on the walls and hanging decorations and things like that. But all the like main build out would be on Esti. Yeah.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So our next question here is, and this is for both of you, can you tell us a memorable moment or event at Bike Bar that really encapsulated either the spirit of the establishment, or there was one moment where you were like, hey, we're doing the right thing here and we have a good trajectory. Was there any kind of aha moments for either of you in the early stages?
I mean, for me, right off the bat, the memory that I always keep is, we started doing old time nights there, or
Right.
Yeah,
sometimes,
the Tuesdays, which I love, yeah.
And this may not even been, maybe old time wasn't happening yet, but Richie Stearns was playing, and it was busy, and I was pouring pints of beer, and it was just like one after the other, and the music was going, people were having a great time, and I remembered almost like seeing like melodic notes float past me that Richie was playing.
Yeah.
And I was just like caught up in this vibe of like, this is awesome.
Dude,
So
that is amazing.
yeah, everybody was feeling it, So,
Yeah, I'm getting chills just hearing you describe it. Seriously.
You have those moments in there though, where like,
Yeah.
where there's just like a really magical moment where you're like, oh man, I'm glad I stayed down here for this, or
Yeah.
I'm glad I stayed late tonight because I would have missed this amazing scene. Apparently, some people got married in there the other day.
Oh yeah, it was hilarious.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
They
Yeah.
brought a Justice of the Peace
Married
with
or
them and
proposed?
everything?
Yeah,
No, they had an
They got married.
impromptu wedding.
No schnaggles.
Or
we didn't know that was happening.
Nice.
yeah, I mean, all I remember is 17 bottles of Prosecco being poured into these little glasses.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
brought it,
Bike Bar, the wedding venue.
Yeah.
There you go.
But what I've noticed is, from the community aspect, is having local music featured, or even non-local, the Ithaca community loves music.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people are coming in to either, have drinks and listen to music, or not even have drinks and listen to music.
Yeah.
And there's this like, there's everybody's together at that moment.
Yeah.
The vibe is always great there, no matter what day of the week is. So
Even with grad students, yeah.
Right.
I don't even notice that. I'm always too happy in my corner at the bar there.
We're usually home by the time they get there.
Yeah,
'Cause we're the
yeah,
happy
I'm
hour.
early
We're the
bird.
old timer
Yeah, we're the happy hour
hour.
specialists.
That's right.
No, I've being a non-Ithacan, a local and transplant, I've heard so many, questionable things about some of the Cornell grad students being at bars and taking it over, and I have nothing but good to say about those.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've been fantastic customers. I get to know them as they are at school for 2 to sometimes,
Yeah.
some of them will be there for 6 years.
And you guys have the space for it, and you have a good system for cranking out drinks. I've seen a party of 8, 9 people
Yeah.
come in, and you guys will line up 8 drinks and crank them out.
That's
so.
because Joe's a machine.
Yeah, Joe is a machine.
Mark too.
Mark loves it. Loves being on that stage. Mark loves being on stage, whatever it is, music or behind the bar.
Right.
Honestly, though, the whole staff that is there, that has been ever there, and the staff now, Sarah and Evan and Mark and Joe.
You mean Kevin?
Everybody involved. It's been really nice because it's, you ask for like one moment, but really there's just like, sometimes it's just those like quiet moments where you can get to like, there's 3 people in the bar and you can hang out and get to talk to someone and
Absolutely.
get to know a little bit about their life and have a beer with them maybe or something prior to opening. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
It's that part of it,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ithaca definitely becomes like a place where people travel to.
Yeah.
Sure.
Especially post-COVID when people start traveling again, but we're not traveling, to Europe or anything. Their idea of traveling somewhere was Finger Lakes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
during that period, there was so many people coming into Ithaca and just having these great conversations, and people were they were socializing.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
You could, even the time I remember when masks came down and people were coming into the bar and socializing.
Yeah. I was there for those beginning days when
Yeah.
you started taking down the
that
plastic
was-
partition.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It really was incredible to see people's faces light up.
Coming out
and
of hibernation.
Yeah, and it just kind of let me know that the bar as a social meeting place is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the highlight of my week. I tell you, really. I don't really go out too much on the weekends and always look forward to my Wednesday happy hours. So thank you
Wednesday's
guys.
very important for me. All right. So I got a 2-part question for you guys. With the relatively recent expansion of the bike bar that doubled its size, what are the new features or offerings that patrons can look forward to? What was like the decision to be like, hey, we can do this. We can expand the bar.
I mean, from the my point of view is that I'm a kind of analyze systems
Sure.
and see why a system's working or not working.
Right.
And with the space that we had and the demand we had, there was a serious, imbalance there.
Right.
So being able to open the space and allow the clientele to flow, and then opening the space behind the bar and allowing us to flow,
Right.
that's just like exponential joy right there.
Yeah.
That was just inevitably, it had to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Chris and I talked about it quite a bit
Okay.
prior to it happening and being built. But one of the big catalysts there was that, the retail clothing market, whether it used or new, was just so difficult. And as more and more things went online,
Yeah.
it was not a difficult decision to be like, hey, it's time to pivot. This business is working. This one is not.
Right. Okay.
This idea is working and this idea is not. And how, you don't want to I didn't want to ride that business into the ground.
Sure.
Which I kind of did anyway, but it was getting to the point where I was super frustrated with where that was at. Brick and mortar retail is where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all know that
21st
that's
century.
very difficult. And,
Post-COVID.
yeah, I got tired of managing it and frustrated, and I have a family, and
Yeah.
it wasn't working.
Right.
So, and it was as disappointing as it was. The other hand, it was really, nice to know there was this other little piece that was working that was unexpected, because I didn't know what to expect out of the bar. I didn't have. You can write a business plan all day, but you don't know what's going to come of it. And so I was like, hey, this seems to be working. I think I'm just going to put the other foot in there and give this place more space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think also that going through COVID, I remember the conversations we had it was like, the bar had been open for 4.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like this must survive, because this is such a, an investment. And the old goat had been around for a while, and we were going to watch it kind of maybe wither away with COVID.
Yeah.
And then the bike shop did amazingly well. You know, Steve's attention was all of a sudden, it's like,
Briefly.
well, when everyone's like, you know, just needed their bike fixed, they needed
Sure.
to get out and bike. People had the time and space to bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Social distancing activity.
yeah, and so it became clear that there were parts of Old Goat that were going to still work fairly well,
Right.
you know, as a business. But then I think we talked about like money earned per square foot.
Right.
You know, we knew that the bar just exponentially has such a high.
It wasn't in clothing and gear, unfortunately. Although
Yeah.
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 the bar was also new and exciting, and
Yeah.
it was nice to see it grow.
Absolutely.
Having a space for music and things like that was like very exciting to me.
Yeah, I love the new space.
Thank you.
I think also, you know, laying the groundwork, having a business next, you know, the Old Goat for, what was it, 11 years at the time, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's like, everybody knew what the Old Goat
Sure.
was. So
Yeah.
putting a bar next to it was like, I mean, it basically
Synergy.
almost had like a soft opening for 11 years.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
coming. It's coming.
Well, speaking of that,
Beer's gonna be flowing.
You had asked earlier about the actual opening of the bar.
Yeah.
Because I said, you know, Chris and I had been working together before while there was still paper on the windows, and I was starting to tell you the story when we finally did get our liquor license, and there was, I think I'd come in and Chris was doing some things around the bar, kind of, you know, we would do things
Sure.
just to stay busy at that point because it was essentially ready to go.
Right.
I was like so nervous. I was like, well, when do you want to open? Chris was like, well, if you're not going to open the door, I'm going to open the door right now. So I unlocked the door, and I was super nervous, but yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah. So
was
so
like-
that was the opening. You know,
It was like 5:30, like on a Thursday.
yeah.
And when
Okay.
what year was this? Or
This was October of 2019.
Yeah.
okay. All right.
And I remember,
That's why I moved to Ithaca.
nice,
Yeah.
perfect time.
Nice.
So I saw the signage, and I was with my sister, and I was like, bike bar. This is like my bike bar. like, what's going on here? Like, what is going on here? Like,
Yeah. A lot of people
Cool.
thought motorcycles.
you're right, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I always
Probably
tell,
Davidson assless chaps.
Yeah, I always tell the customers the R is silent.
Right.
Like, ah.
Bike. And what was funny about that night is that, you know, maybe an hour later, there were a bunch of people in the bar, and I turned to Steve and I said, "Do you know any of these people?" And he goes, "No."
Yeah. It's just
So
random people.
it's
Yeah.
just a bunch of random people who came in. So to me, that is success.
Yeah, totally. Because you're thinking like, Steve, you're thinking like bike bar. Like, I know a lot of people in the bike industry.
Yeah.
My biking community is going to keep this like afloat. But then,
Sure.
like I've said, like my friends that don't bike, like it's their favorite bar.
Yeah. They just like the space. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the vibe,
Comfortable
like
place,
the
yeah.
staff, like
Sure.
whether beer drinkers or cocktail drinkers or just the people there,
Yep.
just like they just love it. So
We're trying to incorporate more stuff for the cycling community too. We did. Simon was running all those Alley Cat races for
Yeah.
a while. That was really fun. Brought a lot of biking community in. Hopefully, we do more group rides and things like that.
Nice.
And this summer.
yeah, nice.
All right. So, on to our next question here. Can you tell us what has been the biggest challenge that you guys have faced, both in running the bar and the bike shop, and how have you guys overcome that? What kind of challenges have you guys faced where you were kind of like scratching your heads and like, wow, we got to deal with this? Like, has there been any kind of things like that you really had to work through?
I mean, I think just from inception of the bar to opening to COVID to doubling the bar, it's been a constant, like, almost like a snowball going uphill, rotating backwards
Right.
and getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, a constant, you know, reassessment, assessment, and just executing to solve.
There's always hurdles. Yeah.
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 It never ends. I mean, but I think that's any small business.
Sure.
Right? It's just there's always something. There's always something you have to solve every day, and like both of us are always. You know, we could be out of there texting each other. Oh, I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with this, and that's just how it goes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of it, I think, is just finding how we can fulfill our roles to the bar and our outside lives at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right.
Have that balance of
Yeah, what is balance these days?
But,
It's important. It's probably the most important.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. All right. So how do you guys? This is for both of you. So how do you guys stay up to date with the latest cycling and hospitality trends? I mean, like, trying for me, for my personal hobbies of cycling, I wish I could do more. I wish I could pay attention to more like what cycling trends are. And then like for work, for the hospitality industry, it's just trying to keep up with everything. And like either way, like I feel like I'm always drowning.
Yeah,
So,
and you guys always have new beers.
Yeah.
The cocktail menu gets refreshed. Like, how do you guys stay up on that kind of stuff?
On the bike end, at least, I could say that like aside of social media and the obvious things, that's a pretty tight knit group of people that like to chit chat. You know, and if you're involved with any of Cycle CNY or any of the organizations, you get a lot of chatter. But also, you know, I tend to have young mechanics in the shop who are way more on top of.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are like 20 years old.
God bless the youth.
Yeah, so they know a lot about what's happening in the cycling industry. And like, you know, there's times where I'm like, oh, what the hell is that? You know, I'm gonna look something up and be like, oh, that's, you know, but that's generally it. But in the end, I mean, the Old Goat is sort of a, you know, it seems like it's becoming more of a commuter and like downtown shop than anything. Yeah, like we do serve some of the mountain biking and like road cycling community, but a lot of locals just are like trying to maintain their bikes. And so, you know, we're not always on top of the latest trends, but e-bikes seem to be never endingly. They just keep coming.
Right.
Which you can get them there at the Old Goat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But they just keep for repairs and stuff. It's more and more people are riding e-bikes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, but
we're
the
seeing
e-bikes
a lot of
is like
changes are fast.
relatively new thing. When you were like, when they were starting to come, like you were like servicing them, like that's a whole other thing because you're doing like a motor.
That's
like,
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've been like, I took some courses on that.
Okay.
Like the Shimano tech courses. And, we're, you know, I mean, I think every shop's dealing with that. You do what you can to learn. I mean, everybody has to become sort of this basic electrician. You need to know how to solder, you know, this kind of thing.
It's a whole other animal in the biking community.
It is, but it's not going away. So
Right.
it's like, you know, if you're a shop turning that away.
Right.
So there's a lot of like bikes, you know, these e-bikes, some of them are just cheap Amazon bikes that you're like, man, I don't want to put time into repairing a cheap one. But, you know, you got to kind of just assess each one as they come in and see what you can do.
Okay. So, but like for like Old Goat, like
Definitely.
you get the range of bikes
Yes.
of like the old beat up one that wants to ride around the commons. You get
For
the
sure.
e-bike, you get the mountain bike, you get a $5,000 Bianchi, like coming in with wireless shifting. Like, like when these people bring these bikes in, you're just like, hold on, I gotta do like a little homework here before I start working on this guy.
Yeah. There's always that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's but you know, the more you go through it, you just kind of eventually you're forced to catch up.
Okay.
Forced
Good answer.
You're forced to learn it.
Yeah, totally. Nice.
And,
All right.
and Chris, how about you on the beer and the cocktail side?
I mean, on the beer side of things, we are limited to what we can get based on our distributors. You know, and a lot of it is just going through with like a fine-tooth comb and finding the stuff that's yummy, and you know, keeping a variety of styles available.
Absolutely.
I've never been like a strictly IPA guy, and I know that was like, you know, an ongoing trend.
Sure.
And to some people's joy, to some people's misery.
Right.
You know, but the beer community itself, I swear that was my pants. But you know, with
We'll enhance the sound on that.
oh my god, with beer is like a constant flow of like new tasty stuff coming out, and the amount of beer companies that, you know, are around, it's just constantly changing.
Sure.
So I find that, you know, and also with the cocktails, like if you adhere to the classics, but also pay attention to like maybe some trends, but we're not going to change our whole style of what we're doing based on trends.
Right. Absolutely.
I would rather be the bar in Ithaca who is like,
This is our stuff.
yeah, and it's like we have our own trend.
Yeah.
And it works for us. But I don't want to, you know, like I said, we didn't make a Negroni before, and now we sell them hand over fist.
Right.
So you have to pay attention to what people are asking for, and balance out, you know, that demand with what we can actually produce as a bar in a consistent concise, and classy way.
Yeah, and I think you guys have hit that balance perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
my experience has been great on both the beer side and the cocktail side. So, all right. So we only have 2 or 3 more questions here for you guys.
We're really loose.
And we would like to know, are there any upcoming events or collaborations at Bike Bar that the local community should be excited about? Anything that you guys are looking forward to that's on your radar?
I mean, I would say, aside from the Zydeco, like the Aaron Lip, Richie Stearns.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Ding, ding.
Saturday, March 16th.
Okay.
Yes, that's going to be amazing. And for our listeners who are not familiar, Aaron Lip is a former member of Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad, which is how I first knew him as the keyboard player. And I'm going back 10 years. He hasn't been with the band for a very long time. He's had a very illustrious solo career since then.
Yeah, he's I think recorded with the Wood Brothers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sam Grisman project now.
Okay, yeah.
Touring with Sam Grisman.
Yeah, so those are some big guns.
Yeah, and so I have that on my calendar. I sent the invite to my wife and our friend Ryan.
Nice.
So I was thinking about you. Hopefully you'll be in town.
Yeah.
So
If I'm in town, I'll definitely be there.
yeah, that's going to be a great night.
If I was to put out a secret
Yeah.
under the radar the next day, which it happens to be St. Patrick's Day,
Ding, ding.
there's I think an afternoon show at Deep Dive on Scuba Jerry.
Okay, nice.
Full Scuba Jerry.
Yeah, I heard about that. I think it's
Sunday
like
show.
a 6 p.m. start time or something like
that,
that. Yeah, which I love, by the way.
Sure.
And so that's a great tip. Now, is that in the rumor category or is that happening?
Can you announce it here on the podcast?
I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed.
It's been confirmed.
You heard it
All
here
right.
first on the Pulse of Ithaca
That's
podcast.
right. If anything changes, we'll let you know. That's awesome. Anything for you, Steve, that you wanted to mention?
No, I mean, on the bike side of things, we'll likely get some group rides or some alley cat races arranged for late spring and summer. that kind of
Weather
thing.
dependent.
Yeah, weather dependent, and finding someone that's interested in like running that. We're always looking for someone to run group rides, and
I might have to nominate myself.
All right, that's amazing.
yeah. So those were just kind of all over the place, all over the map, date wise last year, but they were really fun, great turnout.
Yeah. I remember being at the bar when one of those ended.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest thing. Like, we didn't even know what was going on. All of a sudden, people start showing up in full bike gear
Yeah.
Heard the
and bringing their
cleats
bikes into the bar. And everybody starts clapping and cheering. And we just carried that on for like the next couple of hours. And by
Yeah.
the end of the night, the bar was filled with bikes and people in bike gear. And it was like, just,
Yeah, this is great fun. Yeah, I want to make sure those happen again.
Yeah.
In some
Yeah.
form. Yep.
awesome.
All right. Can you guys share a piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start a business in a niche market like yours? So I gotta say, like, you guys are kind of like, just because the beer and then like the biking, like you guys married like 2 things I love, and you did it successfully. So like, what kind of like advice would you give to someone that
I would say being willing and able to pivot and change is like know how to adjust to what works
Sure.
Yeah.
for you and the community, and feel that not only in both directions, like, hey, this might be working for me, but people aren't really responding to
Sure.
it, or vice versa. And
You're right.
yeah, and just kind of like work like the bike shop. It's a really small thing at this point, but it's a great little add-on for the bar. I would love to have like a nice big full out beautiful stainless steel bike shop, but it's just a handmade little wooden place that is fun to have next to the bar. It's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, being able to shift and go with what works is what I would say to anyone doing any business, really.
Yeah, seriously, that's great advice.
Don't stick to your guns if the ship is sinking.
Yeah, be okay to say, hey, I was wrong on something.
Yes.
COVID was a
whatever,
good teacher of that too, I feel.
Yeah.
Just like being able to pivot, like you said.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to be able to understand what your expectations, what is the reality of your expectation, what's the reality of your customer's expectation,
Right.
How do those things share space together? And you actually, it's like listening to music versus just putting an album on.
Right.
You're consciously listening every moment to what's happening.
Yeah.
And then, like Steve said, then you're able to pivot.
Right.
You understand how to pivot. Pay attention.
Right.
How about that?
Yeah, but because I think that's one of the biggest problems of anyone who's not successful is just not get your head
Don't
out,
budge. Yeah.
get your head out of your butt.
Yeah.
Right.
Pay attention to what's going on and be, like Steve said, don't stick to your guns.
Right.
Be able to, but don't sell yourself out either. You got to find that balance between all of those elements.
Right on. So we have one last question for you guys. Actually, there's going to be two last questions because Chris, I just wanted to touch base with you real quick on how your trip to the fish in Cancun was. But before we get to that, and just a little add-on question there. For those of us who are regulars and for potential new visitors, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the bike bar or the bike shop that we haven't covered today, or did we nail it?
I mean, I think the most important thing about the bar, aside from what we're serving people and getting or the atmosphere, is that I've talked to so many people from so many different. It's a very diverse bar.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
had so many people walk in and go, I feel comfortable here.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's like that I feel successful.
Yeah.
And
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say just working with a great bunch of people. Like I have a lot of faith and trust in the people that I work with, and I'm
Absolutely.
super happy about it. I mean, like, I love everyone that comes in as well, but I mean, what a great staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have done such a great job there. I moved here in 2018. It was one of the first bars that I went to, and I really haven't explored too many other different places around town. But I really appreciate the community that you guys have created there.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And it's been amazing.
No, thank you.
And Chris, real quick, how was the fish Cancun experience for you?
I mean, it's
You just got back?
yeah. What's cool about it is that I would say the higher percentage of people going to the shows are a little bit older
Yeah.
and not like just it's like a responsible crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a 50 and over crowd, right? It's the only one who can afford it.
I mean, honestly, I would say you can kind of hit 30 and up.
Okay,
It's
30 and up,
probably
yeah.
where it's at. Yeah, there are some very successful 30-year-olds out there.
And how are the logistics of that festival or that event? Is it really easy to move from the concert area to the other communal areas there? Like, what is the layout like there?
I mean, it's essentially you have like a strip of resorts, and then in front of that you have a bunch of pools, and then once you hit the beach, kind of off to the left in front of one of the resorts, is just a massive, I would say, long rectangular sandbox. At one end of it is a bunch of food, the other end of it is a stage.
Yeah.
Palm trees everywhere. It's perfect weather.
Yeah, your pictures look amazing.
Yeah, and Fish is a band that I think they are, they've put themselves through the ringer in certain ways, and they're very smart. They're very, like, the wisdom is there in their music now.
Yeah.
And they also have a sense of humor.
Right, absolutely.
Which I think if you're doing what they're doing at this time and for that long, and you have wisdom and humor, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good
Yeah.
to go. But, I mean, the shows are just, the band knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's go check it out.
Yeah, awesome.
Go have fun.
One of these years, me and my wife got to get down there. Sounds like a great time. Well, once again, I'd like to thank you both.
Yeah, thank you guys
for joining us. Me and Sean have been excited about this one now for a couple of weeks since we found out you two were joining us. And let's get a round of applause here from our live audience. So happy to have these two gentlemen here with us.
Thank you.
Stay up, take a bow.
And stay with us. In 30 seconds, we'll be back with Sean telling us about his recent hiking trip to Faro Lake. So stick with us.
Nature calls and Sean answers. Join us as we venture into the great outdoors.
And we're back. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Such a great interview we had there.
Yeah, it really
with
was.
Chris and Steve. I'm so glad we had a chance to do that.
Yeah, totally.
Good stuff. So we are now on to our third and final topic. Each week, you go out and you do all kinds of outdoor stuff. And I think today you're here to tell us about a recent camping trip you went on.
Yeah, this one's a little different.
Yeah.
This This was a to the nines hiking trip.
And where did you go for this trip?
So I went to Faro Lake, which is in the Adirondacks, with my friend Nick. And whenever I go hiking, camping with Nick, it's like a theme event.
Okay.
So like a month ago, it was we just tripped it was like to Moscow. So like the menu was like all Moscow.
Yeah.
It was very Russian theme.
Mm-hmm.
And so for February, I was like, what do you want to do for February? Like, what's the theme? And I had this Facebook memory come up. We cooked rabbit outdoors. And last year was the year of the rabbit in the Chinese zodiac.
Okay.
So I looked up, like, what's this year's, like, Chinese zodiac? And I go, oh, it's dragon.
Nice.
Like, all right, we can't cook dragons. Like, what's up? Like, do you want to remember this? And he's like, no, it's great. Let's do it. So we had a very Chinese and dragon themed thing. We brought fireworks out. We had a Chinese spicy stew, which made in a wok.
Okay.
We had a dragon tapestry that we hung up.
Okay, nice.
We had a dragon banner held up. We had dragon red lights hung up in our campsite. The amazing thing is, like, if you type in like Year of the Dragon in Amazon, you'll get like 1 million hits.
Right, I'm sure.
So actually, I was just like putting a lot of things in my Amazon cart that were dragon theme, and it was at one point it was like 16 items, and I'm like pretty bad at getting a little like buzzed, and then like going to Amazon and like buying half the store there,
and then
like,
waking up with regret.
Yeah,
I've done
like,
that.
oh man,
I can relate.
Yeah,
you always gotta hit that save for later button.
Yeah,
take it out of your cart, sleep on it, but it's so hard.
So I had 16 items in my cart, and I was texting Nick, and I was texting my sister, and I was like, I'm gonna let this sit for a bit. I need you guys to be like my anchor to tell me don't pull the trigger quite yet.
Right.
Like, just wait till you're like sober and just like filter out. But yeah, it was a great trip. It was, so like when I left Ithaca, it was like I don't remember the temp, but it was like almost like spring like. All the snow had melted. It was warm.
Yeah, it was warm. This was not last weekend, but the weekend before.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then, but when we got there, it was a winter wonderland. There was probably like a foot of snow.
Get out of here.
Faro Lake was frozen over.
And how far of a drive from Ithaca was that?
From Ithaca's 4.5 hours.
Okay.
So like Friday night, I went to my friend Nick's house, who lives like an hour south of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we left like early Saturday to go there. It was only an hour drive, and we got there around 8 a.m. But he had a really good idea. So like where we're camping out was pretty flat. So we utilized his sun sled.
Mm-hmm, nice.
And we put like all the gear in there. So we just had to pull a sled, which was like flowing over like the fresh snow, like pretty easy. But yeah, it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And I think like the high during the day was like 20 or 25, and then got down to like 5 degrees that night.
Geesh. Now, were you prepared for that? Because if it's going to be single digits, I have a whole bunch of extra gear that I'm bringing. Yeah.
The funny thing was when we did our like Moscow trip, like in January, like it was like a wonderland too.
Yeah.
It was cold, but this was colder this weekend. And so we're like, all right, like Moscow was like a totally easy trip. We totally nailed it. So we just, everything we need, we already like had it. We just dialed in, and for the most part, it was okay. And it's hard to believe that, like, yeah, it was like 5 degrees at night. And
yeah. And what do you have? Do you have like a -20 sleeping bag? Like, what does that look like when you try to like bundle up at the end of the night?
My sleeping bag is rated for 0 degrees.
Okay. So you were good.
Yeah, I brought 2 extra blankets.
And what was underneath you? Did you have like a mattress? Like what was underneath you?
What I brought is this like cot. It's like a foldable cot.
So you were up off the ground?
I was up off the ground like
That's
4
huge.
inches. My friend Nick was on a sleeping pad. And I think I was warmer than him.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
But yeah, it was so much fun because we had like the whole lake to ourselves, and luckily he had a bunch of fireworks to like set off like Chinese New Year and stuff.
Amazing
tradition, and like some of these fireworks were pretty good.
Dude, that is hilarious. So so let me get this right. You guys are out there partying. You're in Faro Lake in single degree temperatures.
Yep.
It's what, midnight, 11 o'clock.
And we're just lighting off
Did you guys wait that long? And you're lighting off fireworks
on a frozen lake.
on a frozen lake.
Yeah, it was so much fun, dude. And we kept it too. Like, so like when we do these theme things, like so it was like Chinese theme. So I was looking for like Chinese like liquors or like spirits, and like they were hard to find. And luckily, he found something called baijiu, which is like a spirit made from sugarcane.
Okay.
So we drank a lot of that, or didn't drink a lot of it. We drank the whole thing, the whole bottle of that. I think that helped kept us warm too.
Yeah, right. And then what time did you guys wake up in the morning? Like the sun's coming up now at like what, 7 o'clock?
Yeah, the sun's gone up earlier. I think we got about like 7ish maybe.
Okay. And did you wake up to being cold? Did you wake up because it was light out? Like what?
Yeah, I had to admit that the only thing that was cold on me the whole entire time was my toes.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't like my toes were frostbite. It was just more like I could feel my toes being cold.
Right.
But the thing is, we had like a huge fire going on like the whole night.
Was it still going in the morning?
It was still going on. So it was just like in the morning it was like a quick like throwing like a little more logs on to get that fire like really raging and stuff, and then get it warm again.
Yeah. And do you guys bring in a little bit of wood, a little bit of kindling, a little bit of dry stuff, and then fish the rest of it out of the woods there?
We didn't, for the most part, because so like depending on where you go, like where we went in the Adirondacks, we knew that it was tons of like good wood and good kindling, and so that's pretty easy. And I actually another Amazon purchase late at night was this heavy duty folding saw.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah. They're game changers.
Yeah.
It's basically like a broadsword when you flip it out.
Right.
I mean, I was cutting down like big trees, and then we were just like hacking that away.
Awesome.
And it was just great because the wood is all like, nice and dried and like burns so easily. So it was like a big help.
That's awesome. And you mentioned the lake, right? So you're at Farrow Lake, but where was your campsite exactly? You described like where was it in relation to the lake and that
20 feet from the lake.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. And were you facing the sunset or the sunrise?
That's a good question.
Was it cloudy?
So where we were like 20 feet in, like it was wood coverage. I honestly couldn't tell you if it was east or west.
Okay.
But
and was this your first time there?
Second time.
Second time.
So
at the
spot, the first time we went there was back in the late summer. And the cool thing about this lake is, so it's like a mile hike in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that.
Where we camped was a mile in, which is not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
But around the whole lake, there were like these built lean-tos to check out.
Okay.
So where we were in the summer, like we stayed in the lean-to.
And why did you avoid the lean-to this time?
Because we had so much stuff.
Oh, it was
namely all my Amazon purchases.
Okay, it was a further hike to get over to lean-tos.
Yeah, I mean, when you get that point, it gets a little more technical. So the sled idea like wasn't really practical.
Okay, right.
But it was cool though. So like my friend Nick, like the week prior, I had scouted out the area. He's like, I found a good spot. We can use the sled.
Yeah, it's level.
Mile hike in. We can bring a lot of stuff in. It's not going to be an issue.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great to have somebody doing recon for you ahead of time.
100%.
That is awesome.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone hikes and been like, yeah, that's not what I read online.
Right. So what's up next? You got anything? You got any more camping trips planned out?
We do. I pitched 2 ideas to him for March and then April, and they were really obscure, random ideas that he loves and ran off with. So in March, we're doing an Irish 19th century lager theme.
Awesome.
We already have a lot of the attire and like the tools that were like of the time period.
Yeah, yeah.
So like in January we did like Russia, and then like February we did China. So like we gotta switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But like March is like, St. Patty's Day. Like gotta do something Irish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a give me. And then I was like, we gotta do a twist on it. And the twist was like, let's do a time period. So I started like Googling like 19th century lagers. I got like all these like old school pics of like lagers and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I sent him pictures. I'm like, let's do that. It's like, all right, we'll make this work. Yeah. And then in April, it's gonna be a very different one. This is gonna it's gonna take a lot of creative, but we have a 2-parter, and it's gonna be a sci-fi 2-parter. So it's going to be classic sci-fi, Twilight Zone theme. So like, I don't know if you know, like Rod Serling, the host of Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
He's from Syracuse, but he had a house on Interlaken.
Okay.
So he has ties in Ithaca, which is really cool. And then the other part of the sci-fi is like futuristic.
Okay, very cool.
So like my friend Nick does like, he's a project manager and does like production design.
Mm-hmm.
So I come up with these ideas. I go, make this happen.
Yeah.
And he does it. So he sent me like the storyboard about the sci-fi double parter, and it's so cool.
Dude, that's amazing. I love how creative you guys are with your hiking trips.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to hear about them.
Yeah.
So good that you guys have this planned out. Now, do you have the locations picked out for these yet?
Not yet. Yeah. So we're looking on that. We've been doing like some research. But yeah. So actually, no, for the sci-fi double parter, he actually wants to come to Ithaca.
Nice.
Because of the Rod Serling like connection to Ithaca.
Yeah.
So I would love to, and then pick your brain about Cornell campus. I feel like Cornell campus is going to make insight for like some sci-fi stuff.
Yeah. And so you guys going to be camping on that trip then?
Yeah. So they, don't quote me on this because we're still in the brainstorming idea, but so like, we're trying to like factor in like classic sci-fi. So like UFO, like abductions and aliens.
Yeah.
And then tie that into like future, like alien, whatever.
Right. And what have you guys picked out have you thought about camping spots here in Ithaca, since you guys are doing that in this area instead of the Adirondacks?
I haven't, but I know that's going to fall on me.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be one of the spots I've mentioned before on the podcast. But I'll keep it a secret until after we do it, so we don't have a bunch of visitors coming.
There you go. Good.
Or what these two dudes are doing with like all these like.
That's right.
So yeah.
Well, good stuff. Well, definitely looking forward to those adventures coming up. And I think that's pretty much a wrap for this episode.
Yeah, what a good episode.
Yeah, that was fun. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We realize that you have a lot of options for what you're listening to and how you're spending your day. So hopefully it was worth your time. Big shout out to everybody out there and around the world. You all make this show possible. I'm your host, Pete. And of course, I've been joined by the ever insightful Sean. We hope that you take this opportunity to discover Faro Lake and the Adirondacks. And if you love what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support goes a long way in helping us bring you the latest and greatest from Ithaca. So if you have an event or a story you want us to cover, reach out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, keep your finger on the pulse of Ithaca and make the most of this place we call home. Take care, everyone.